Welcome to IELTS 17 Test 3 Passage 1, the thylacine. This passage has 13 questions in 2 different types. The first 5 are note completion questions, and the last 8 are true/false/not given questions. Understanding the question types helps you find the right strategy faster. The article has 8 paragraphs. It is an expository text about the thylacine. From passage 1 to 3 introduces the thylacine's appearance, behavior, and breeding. From passage 4 to 5 discusses the thylacine's distribution and reasons for extinction. From passage 6 to 9 focuses on conservation efforts and later searches. The note completion questions are mainly in the first 3 paragraphs, while the true/false/not given questions cover the whole passage. Next is the note completion for Q1-5. One-word limit, mostly extracted directly from the text. Let's look at question 1. The note asks for the thylacine's diet type. The statement says it was exclusively meat-eating with a strong stomach. The word before the blank is exclusively, so we need an adjective to describe the diet type. Let's go to paragraph 2 and look for information about feeding. The text says it was exclusively carnivorous. The word carnivorous is the answer, and it is directly given in the original text. So the answer to question 1 is carnivorous. Let's look at question 2. The note mentions the scents that thylacines relied on during long-distance chases. The clue words are long-distance chases and relied on. The blank comes after more on, so we need a noun for a sense. Locate paragraph 2. Scan for sentences related to long-distance chases. The original text says, during long-distance chases, thylacines were likely to have relied more on scent than any other sense. The answer word scent is directly given here. So the answer to question 2 is scent. Let's look at question 3. The note describes baby animals crawling into a part of their mother's belly and staying there for 3 months. The blank is after crawled into the, so the answer must be a place noun. Let's locate paragraph 3. The sentence describing the baby's behavior after birth. The original text says newborns crawled into the pouch. The answer word pouch appears directly. So the answer to question 3 is pouch. Let's look at question 4. The note asks for the type of evidence for the most recent thylacine. The blank is after carbon dated, so the answer should be a physical object that can be carbon dated. Go to paragraph 4 and look for the description related to carbon dated. The text says a carbon-dated fossil. The answer word fossil is directly given. So the answer to question 4 is fossil. Let's look at question 5. The note says reduction in habitat. We need to find the word habitat in the passage. The clue word is reduction, but the blank is after in, so the answer should be a noun. Go to paragraph 5. Look for the phrase loss of habitat. The original text directly gives loss of habitat, so the answer is habitat. This word is directly given in the original text, no replacement needed. So the answer to question 5 is habitat. Let's look at question 6. From the 1830s onwards, significant numbers of thylacines were killed by humans. Please pause and decide if this is true. Clue words, significant numbers, killed by humans, from the 1830s. Locate paragraph 5. Scan for anchor words, dramatic decline, 1830s, relentless efforts. The original text says, dramatic decline, attributed to the relentless efforts of sheep farmers and bounty hunters with shotguns. The statement says significant numbers were killed by humans. The text says the dramatic decline was attributed to the relentless efforts of sheep farmers and bounty hunters. This is a synonym replacement. So the answer to question 6 is true. Let's look at question 7. The statement says several thylacines were born in zoos during the late 1800s. Key clue words are several and born in zoos. Locate paragraph 6. The scanning landmark is successful attempt to breed. The original text says only one successful attempt to breed a thylacine in captivity. The statement says several but the text says only one. This is a clear opposite meaning, a direct clash. So the answer to question 7 is false. Let's look at question 8. The statement says John Gould's prediction about the thylacine surprised some biologists. Key clue words: John Gould, prediction, biologists, surprised. Locate paragraph 6. The scanning landmark word is the famous naturalist John Gould. The original text says, the famous naturalist John Gould foresaw the thylacine's demise. The text only mentions Gould's prediction, but says nothing about whether any biologists were surprised. This is making up information, not a contradiction. So the answer to question 8 is not given. Let's look at question 9. In the early 1900s, many scientists became worried about the possible extinction of the thylacine. Key clue words: many scientists and worried. Locate to paragraph 7. The scanning landmark is nor was much concern expressed by scientists. The original text says, nor was much concern expressed by scientists at the decline of this species. The statement says many scientists were worried, but the text says scientists expressed little concern. This is a direct contradiction, a type of antonym replacement. So the answer to question 9 is false. Let's look at question 10. T.T. Flynn's proposal to rehome captive thylacines on an island proved to be impractical. Key clue words: T.T. Flynn, proposal, rehome, impractical. Locate paragraph 7. The scanning landmark words are T.T. Flynn and 1914. The original text says, he was sufficiently concerned to suggest that some should be captured and placed on a small island. The text only mentions the proposal itself. It never discusses whether it was practical or not. The statement adds impractical as new information. This is not given, not false, because the text doesn't say the opposite. So the answer to question 10 is not given. Let's look at question 11. The statement says that when a law was passed to protect thylacines during their breeding season, there were still a reasonable number of them. Key clue words: reasonable numbers and breeding season. Locate paragraph 7. The scanning landmark in the text is on the very edge of extinction. The original text says, with the species on the very edge of extinction, meaning the species was about to die out completely. The statement says still reasonable numbers, but the text says on the very edge of extinction. These directly contradict each other. This is an opposite replacement, so the answer is false. So the answer to question 11 is false. Let's look at question 12. The statement says that from 1930 to 1936, the only known living thylacines were all in captivity. Key clue words are 1930 to 1936 and all in captivity. Locate paragraph 7. The scanning landmark words are 1930 and captive specimens. The original text says, the last known wild thylacine to be killed was shot, in 1930, leaving just captive specimens. The statement says from 1930 to 1936 all living thylacines were in captivity. The text says after 1930 leaving just captive specimens. This is a synonym replacement, perfectly matching. So the answer to question 12 is true. Let's look at question 13. It attempts to find living thylacines are now rarely made. Key clue words: attempts to find living thylacines and rarely made. Locate to paragraph 8. The scanning landmark word in the text is expeditions and searches. The original text says, there have been numerous expeditions and searches for the thylacine over the years. The statement says attempts are now rarely made, but the text only mentions many past searches. It does not discuss the frequency of current attempts. This is making something out of nothing, not a contradiction. So the answer to question 13 is not given. Now we move to the trick summary. Let's review 3 common traps. Trick 1, opposite meaning. The statement directly contradicts the text. For example, Q7 and Q9. The statement says A, but the text says the opposite B. Trick 2, wrong subject. The statement's subject is different from the text. For example, Q11. The statement says A did something, but the text says B did it. Trick 3, not mentioned. The statement's information is completely absent from the text. For example, Q8, Q10, and Q13. The text has no matching information. Remember, check absolute words like first or only in the text. Also check if the subject is the same. Now let's summarize the key vocabulary and paraphrases from this passage. Cue 6, killed by humans. Left right arrow, relentless efforts of sheep farmers and bounty hunters. Cue 12, last known wild thylacine killed in 1930. Left right arrow, only captive specimens remained. Completion key terms, carnivorous, scent, pouch, fossil, habitat. That's all for Test 2 Passage 1. Thank you for watching.